Okay, today and tomorrow we're going to be looking at lesson 28, which is two-step problems using all of the different operations. All right, we already did the sprints for lesson 28, so I'm just going to forward past those. And let's take a look at the first example. All right. Juan, our friend Juan, has gained 20 pounds since last year. Now he weighs 120 pounds. Rashad is 15 pounds heavier than Diego. If Rashad and Juan weighed the same amount last year, how much does Diego weigh? Allow J to be Juan's weight and allow D to be Diego's weight in pounds. All right, there's a lot of information in there. So basically, what's the gist? What are we trying to find out? What's our goal? What's our objective? What do we want to know? What do we want to know?
How much Juan weighed last year?
Yeah, so that's our goal. We want to find out, what do we want to find out? How much does Diego weigh? That's what we want to know. So if you want to highlight that or circle that, just to remind us what we're trying to figure out. So now let's first start. We want to find out Juan's weight. Well, what do we know about Juan? That he gained 20 pounds since last year. He now weighs 120 pounds, and J is Juan's weight last year. So those are the three pieces of information we know about Juan. So let's think about how we're going to set up our tape diagram. So Juan's weight last year plus 20 pounds equals this year, which was 120. Does anybody have an idea of how I should draw that tape diagram? How am I going to draw that tape diagram?
For the top box.
Okay.
And then you could, for the bottom box, split it into 20 and X.
All right, well, we're not going to use X. So we know last year, Juan's weight was J. So that was last year. Now this year, he added on another 20 pounds. This total is 120. So now we can visualize mentally, what was his weight last year, everybody? 100. So we know last year Juan was 100 pounds. The tape diagram helps us see that. But are we trying to figure out what Juan weighs? No. We're trying to figure out what Diego weighs. So now we want to find Rashad's weight. We know that Rashad is 15 pounds heavier than Diego. So if he's 15 pounds heavier than Diego, and D is Diego's weight, how would I write that? Right, D plus 15. Now, please put that away. But we have another piece of information here. Rashad and Juan weighed the same amount last year. Last year. So that means I have to make my box the same size as Juan last year. Because Juan's last year is the same as Rashad. And we know that Rashad, from what you just told us, Rashad is the same as Diego plus 15. And I made these boxes the same size because Rashad and Juan were the same weight. How would I represent Diego's weight? What is going to represent Diego's weight? The answer's in the paragraph. What's Diego's weight? What would we use? D. Exactly. And I already have a D here. So I want to make sure that I make it the same size. Okay? Because D is not going to change. It's the same. So those are our 3 tape diagrams to represent our 3 friends' weights. Any questions on how we made any of those tape diagrams? Where a letter came from, where a number came from, why they were the same size. Because Rashad is Diego's weight plus 15. It says up here that Rashad is 15 pounds heavier than Diego. So we took Diego's weight and added 15 to it. And we made it the same size as Juan's weight last year because we know that they weighed the same. So now they want you to combine all 3 tape diagrams. So we have 1 plus 20, that equals 120. We have Diego plus 15 and Diego. Do we know what Diego's weight is? No, not yet. Do we know Rashad's total weight? No, not yet. But we do know Juan's total weight this year, and we were able to mentally figure out Juan's weight last year. So we know what J is, but we don't know what D is. So let's write an equation to represent Juan's tape diagram. We figured out mentally what Juan weighed, but we're going to write an algebraic equation. So what is the equation for this tape diagram for Juan? How do I write Juan as an equation? A number sentence. Bump, ba, bump, ba, bump. How do I write that? What am I doing? Take a shot.
J plus 20 equals 120.
Perfect. Awesome job. J plus 20 equals 120. Perfect. Now let's write an equation to represent Rashad's tape diagram. Well, let's take a look here. Here's Rashad. Well, I have D plus 15, but I don't know what D plus 15 equals. I can't do D plus 15 equals J. Can I solve that? No. But if I take my D plus 15, add on 20, now do I know what the value is? If I added on 20 to that, this whole thing would equal that, which equals 120. Does everybody see that? Yes.
How did you know to add on 20?
Because I looked at my 3 tape diagrams side by side. That's why we stacked them on top of each other like that. Because I know that this equals that. And I know that J plus 20 equals 120. So doesn't J equal D plus 15? So can I just take my J and replace it with D plus 15 plus 20 equals 120. So that's our equation for Rashad's tape diagram. Because I can't do D plus 15 equals J. That's too confusing. All right. Can I combine terms, make less expressions there? Yeah, that's the same thing as D plus 35 equals 120. Yes? But we haven't proved that yet. But we could have. How can we use the final tape diagram or the equations to answer the question represented? Well, let's see. By combining By combining 15 and 20, from Rashad's equation, we can use the identity properties to find Diego's weight. Because we want Diego's weight, and we know that D plus 35 is 120. So our goal was to find Diego. Okay, we didn't have to find Juan's weight from last year, which was 100. So let's calculate Diego's weight. So D plus 35, how am I going to solve that? What do I have to do? But not just subtract 35. Exactly. We have to subtract 35 from both sides to keep both sides of the equal sign equal, like a seesaw. Both sides have to be balanced in order to work. Just like a scale, both sides have to be balanced in order to work. So now when I subtract 35 from the left, that leaves me with D. When I subtract 35 on the right, what do I have? Use your margins, not your mental math. Go to your margin, 120 minus 35. 85. Perfect. So our identities defend our thought that D plus 35 minus 35 equals D. So does our answer make sense? If we go back and plug in 85 for D, will it work? Yes. If Diego weighs 85 pounds, and Rashad is 85 plus 35, which would be, Rashad was 85 plus 15. So Rashad weighs 100 pounds. Which is what Juan weighed last year. But before he gained 50 pounds, 20 pounds. Sorry, Juan. All of this is referring back to the tape diagrams, which is referring back to the original problem. We're answering all the pieces of the original problem. Okay? Questions where any of that came from? When you're done copying that, we'll go back and take a look at our tape diagrams and see how it all fits in. When you're done copying that, turn back so that I can see that you're there. So Diego is 85. Rashad is 85 plus 15, which is 100. So J equals 100. 100 plus 20 is 120. So it checks. It fits all of the information that was given to us in the equation. All right, let's try example 1. Okay, that was exercise 1. This is example 1. What's the difference? I don't know. Why isn't this just number 2? I don't know. Common core numbering. Okay, ready? Come on! Yay!
Yay!
Yay! I know it's Monday. Okay, money. Maybe that'll get your attention. Gentlemen, Marissa has twice as much money as Frank. Christina has $20 more than Marissa, who has twice as much as Frank. If Christina has $100, how much money does Frank have? Let F represent the amount of money Frank has in dollars, and M represent the amount of money Marissa has in dollars. What are we trying to find out? What do we want to know? What do we want to know?
How much?
What are we trying to figure out? Help them out. Yep, how much money does Frank have? That's what we want to know. So let's figure out how much Frank has. What do we know? Frank, how are we going to represent what Frank has? F, exactly. So here, F, that's what Frank has. Now Marissa, what do we know about what Marissa has? What do we know about Marissa? Right, so she has twice as much as Frank. Okay, notice they're the same size. Do the best that you can. So Marissa is equal to 2 of Frank's. What do we know about Christina? What do we know about Christina? Right, so if this is how much Marissa has, right, that's how much Marissa has. So that's Marissa's money plus 15. Whoops, sorry. Sorry, see, that's why I'm not a bank teller. Plus 20. What else do we know about Christina? Are we done? Did we use all the information? What else do we know? We know that Marissa's money plus $20 equals $100. So far, so good? All right. Which tape diagram provides us with enough information to determine the value of the variable? Which one of these tape diagrams could be solved? Do we know? Everybody? Yeah, Christina. So let's write and solve that. How could I write Christina's tape diagram as an algebraic equation? How am I going to do that? Ash? How am I going to turn this blue tape diagram into an equation? What and what equals what? Right, so M plus 20 equals 100. So how am I going to solve that? How am I going to solve that? Right, so what else do I have to do? Rewrite, what am I going to write? Read me the whole line. You said I need to subtract 20, because that's my identity property. So if I subtract 20 from the left, because I have to subtract 20 from the right. You were on the right track. You just didn't tell me the whole thing. Plus 20 minus 20 gives me my identity back. So how much money does Marissa have? Everybody? 80. 100 minus 20 equals 80. Now I just answered the next question. What does that 80 represent? Right. All right. Gentlemen, did you write this down?
I did not.
Because you're chit-chatting.
Sorry.
I appreciate the honesty. Now I'd appreciate it if you copied your notes. Because now you're holding us up. You'll have to get it from your lovely neighbor. She was not chit-chatting and she took the notes.
Thank you, lovely.
Now that we know Marissa has $80, how can we use this information to find out how much money Frank has? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We know that M equals 80. What did we know about this M? What can we do? What's a girl to do? Yep.
Well, we know that Frank, Marissa has twice the amount of money that Frank has, so then that means we divide Marissa's amount.
Okay. We know what Marissa has. So we can use Marissa's tape diagram. We can write an equation for Marissa's tape diagram because now we know Marissa's tape diagram equals 80. Because Marissa's tape diagram is made up of Frank's amount. So what equation can we write for Marissa's tape diagram? I'm going to go back and look. So here's Marissa's. We know that it equals $80. So how am I going to turn that into an expression? How am I going to do that? Take a guess. You got nothing to lose. Take a shot. We could totally do F plus F equals 80. What's a way that we could condense that using less symbols? How many F's are there? Yeah. So it's 2 F's equal 80. Because remember, multiplication is repeated addition. So it's actually 2 times F because I have 2 F's, right? Means the same thing. Very good. Because we want it this way so we could solve it. Right now, what operation is there? So how am I going to solve that? I have to use the inverse. What's the inverse? Division. So what am I going to divide? Right, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So we have 2F divided by 2 and 80 divided by 2. So on the left side, that leaves me with F, and on the right side, that leaves me with 40. And I can prove that because I know the identity property tells me that when I take F and multiply it by 2 and then divide it by 2, that brings me right back to F again. So what? Now that I've got F equals 40, what's F? What's 40? What does that mean? What does F equal 40 mean? What was the F? Well, what did the F represent before we knew it equaled 40? Yeah, go back and look at the problem. Go back and look at the tape diagrams. What is F? Reread the equation. What is F? What is F? Beautiful. Absolutely. Whoops. So I know that F equals the amount of money Frank has. So if F equals 40, 40 also represents the amount of money Frank has in dollars. So does the 40 make sense? Let's go back and plug it into our tape diagrams and plug it into our equation and see that it makes sense. So yes, it makes sense. Because if Frank has $40, then what? What do we know? Frank has 40, what do we know? Go back and look at your tape diagrams. If Frank is 40, what do we know? Marissa is... Whoops. Then Marissa has twice this. So then what? If Marissa has 80, then what do we know? What happened in our next tape diagram? It's kind of like a waterfall. It's trickling from one tape diagram to the next. Now that we know if Marissa has $80, then what? What do we know next?
That Christina has 100.
Christina has $100 because she has $20 more than Marissa. And we know that Christina has $100 because that's what the problem stated.